keynote speaker here is Dr. Boon, advisor, U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and North Carolina 4-H alumni. Dr. Boon knows all about the places a 4-H'er can go, and all the things a 4-H'er can do when they put their mind to it. She is a lifelong 4-H participant, originally from Cabarrus County, and comes from a family of lifelong 4-H'ers. Dr. Boon has served in numerous governmental positions, currently as Senior Advisor to the Director for the Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. She is here to remind us of everything we can do if we just put our minds to it. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Boon.
Thank you so much, Brandon. What you all don't know is I've known Brandon since he was a tiny little baby. So it's very nice to be here, especially seeing young people that I've known for so long doing great things in 4-H. So before I begin, I just want to get a sense of how things have been going this week. So how many of you, raise your hand if you're completely exhausted and you're just praying that your leader will let you sleep all the way back home? Okay. That is perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to see, because that means that all of you were making the most of your time here, and you were already starting to do the theme of this and getting out and doing something. So that also means I have a little bit of a challenge, because I've got to keep you guys awake. So just bear with me, okay? For those of you that have seen the program, you'll see I changed the title a little bit, because it's not just the places you'll go. It's also the people you'll meet along the way and the ways that you'll be inspired to do something. So as Brandon mentioned, I do come from a family that bleeds green. My grandparents were dairy farmers in Iredell County and were lifelong 4-H leaders. Right here I'm on the tractor with my grandfather. And in the bottom corner you'll see all of the Macaulay grandchildren, most of whom have been active in 4-H in some way or another. And in fact, a couple of my cousins are in the audience right now. Daniel and Cooper Macaulay are here, and I'm very proud of them for all of their 4-H work. Now, many of you probably got interested in community service through 4-H, and for me that was an important part of my 4-H career, but it wasn't actually how I got first inspired and knowledgeable that the world was in need of help. That actually came when I was about 5 years old, and at that time there was a famine taking place in Africa. You'll see in the bottom left-hand corner there an image of children in Ethiopia, and that Ethiopia was one of the most affected countries during this famine. And so these types of images were all over the news, and a lot of kind of the pop culture icons of the time, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, and Cyndi Lauper, all got together and they recorded this song called We Are the World. And that was playing on the radio constantly. And so it was kind of the first time that I was recognizing that hunger was an issue in our world and that people needed to do something about it. Around the same time, my mom took me to this event called Hands Across America. And this was an effort to build a human chain all around the country to bring attention to the fact that there was hunger in America as well. And it was standing there in downtown Charlotte, holding hands with strangers, that I realized that even as a 5 or 6 year old, I could do something, and even a small act would count. And this also really sparked my interest in food and nutrition, which, as you've seen from my bio, has become one of my life passions. Now this slide presentation has a lot of embarrassing photos, so feel free to laugh. This is just the 80s and 90s for you. So as the granddaughter of a dairy farmer, you would imagine that showing cows and doing dairy foods presentations would be a logical way to start your 4-H career, and that's exactly what I did. The bottom left-hand corner there, you'll see a picture of my first 4-H foods presentation. I dressed up as a Dutch girl to honor my dad's heritage, and I prepared a traditional Dutch holiday drink. And that was a great experience, not only because I won the county contest, I won the district contest, and man, I got to go to state. And I won there too, and that was just exhilarating. But also because it was my first 4-H Congress at the state level, which became a tradition for all the other years of my childhood and teenage years. And those early 4-H congresses were life-changing for me because I got to stand there and listen to all the state 4-H officers give their farewell addresses and talk about the people that had made a difference in their lives and the great experiences that they had had. And right then and there, I decided I'm going to do that one day. And Brandon's grandmother was there with me as a 4-H leader, and she whispered to me, "Caitlin, you can do this one day, but you've got to overcome your shyness, you've got to start talking to people, and you got to stay active in 4-H." And I took that to heart, and went from there. Also in my 4-H foods projects, I ended up getting very interested in food and nutrition, and went on a tour of my aunt's workplace. And she was a food product developer for Lipton tea. In this top corner is a picture of me touring her lab. And in that 1-hour period, I decided that science was just the coolest thing ever and that I wanted to be a food product developer. So again, little steps along the way make a difference. So I continued along this path in 4-H, but I did more than just the foods area. And started getting involved in lots of different things, going to the same types of events that you all have been going to, and just had fabulous experiences along the way. You'll see, some of you may recognize someone there in the bottom right corner. Mrs. Sarah and I were in 4-H together. That's actually on a trip to Nashville, Tennessee to compete in the National Junior Horticulture Association competition for 4-H fruit and vegetable use presentations. And in the top left corner there, you'll see a picture of me at Citizenship Washington Focus, which was a conference very similar to the one that you've been at all week, but in Washington, D.C. And I do remember at that conference, walking around Washington, meeting my legislators, and thinking, wow, this is a really cool place. But I'm not from a wealthy family. I'm not well connected. I don't know if I could ever, make it here in the long term. But 4-H and a lot of schools kind of changed that for me. So I mentioned to you that being a state 4-H officer was one of my goals from early on. And I actually accomplished that goal in 1998 and served with these other fine folks. And to this day, it still remains one of my proudest accomplishments, not because I won an election, but because of all the 4-H'ers I met from across the state and across the country, and from all the chances I had to hone my leadership skills, work with other people, do community service, that it was getting there that made it such a proud accomplishment. Now, my Macaulay cousins will kid me that basically post 4-H, I just went to college forever. And they're basically right. I went to NC State and majored in food science and poultry science. And yeah, I saw a little pack back there, thank you. And I gotta say that without 4-H, I'm not sure that science passion would have continued. Because I had some pretty lousy science teachers in high school, and if it hadn't been for the fact that I've met professors through 4-H at NC State, and I've seen what I could do later on with a career in the sciences, I'm not sure that motivation would have stayed with me. So for those of you who in the fall might end up with a bad chemistry teacher, or bad biology teacher, or bad English teacher, and you want to be a poet someday, just keep that in the back of your mind. And don't let that single experience change your plans completely. I also had the opportunity to do internships in industry and in the United States Senate, and I had the opportunity to study abroad on a scholarship to the University of Oxford in the UK. And the other great thing about college was I found great friends, just like in 4-H, who have become lifelong friends. This is a picture from my wedding, which happened many years after undergrad, but most of the people in that photo are folks that I met in college. They were fellow nerds who went on to do really interesting and cool things, ranging from literally digging up dinosaurs to being a civil rights attorney to engineering human eye replacements for people that are blind. So take advantage in college and in 4-H of meeting people. The other thing that happened when I was in college was I had the opportunity to do some travel abroad. With the Presbyterian Church, I went to Mexico and to Cuba, and I also spent 3 months volunteering at the International Potato Center in Peru, which is basically the gene bank for all potatoes in the world. And those experiences really changed my perspective. Seeing the world from a non-US viewpoint, seeing how US policies impact the world, and getting a really great appreciation for the food safety system that we have in this country. And I remember one hot night sitting in Cuba talking to one of our guides, and he was telling all of us that he tries to live his life by that quotation below, saying that calling is where your greatest talent meets the world's greatest need. And as that started sinking in, I started wondering, is my calling really food product development, or is it applying my scientific knowledge as well as my policy interests to the world? And so I started kind of shifting and exploring that more. And I was lucky enough to get a US government scholarship to do a master's degree in food policy in the UK, and also meet another set of really cool people along the way. Some of the folks in this picture, the woman in the black works in Afghanistan now doing human relief efforts. The guy next to me is Senator Warren's chief of staff. The girl in the pink is Senator Kerry's daughter, and there I worked with experts around the country developing these 3 reports, which were giving the government recommendations on food safety and nutrition-related issues. And from there, I moved to where I am now, which is the US Food and Drug Administration. And there I work on a variety of issues ranging from implementing the Food Safety Modernization Act, which is the biggest overhaul of food safety our country has seen since the days of your great-grandparents, all the way to working on what the nutrition facts panel should look like in the future, or yesterday's announcement that we're taking steps to reduce trans fat in the food supply. And those have all been fabulous experiences and have made that long journey all worthwhile. The other interesting thing I was able to do fairly recently was, as an FDA employee, I took a rotation to the United States Senate, where I worked on these 2 pieces of legislation that are FDA related, but not quite in my comfort zone. They're a little more in the drug space. But it was a fabulous way of seeing how another part of government works, and it had many lessons learned. And I had a little bit of fun along the way too. This is myself and my son standing on the balcony of Senator Harkin's office watching the 4th of July concert last year. So that's kind of my life and my career in a nutshell. But what I really wanted to stress to you all today is kind of 6 key things that have really been important to me in my journey that I hope you can use and benefit from in your own. So the first is that small acts count. I remember as a Clover bud getting ready to stand up and do my first speech. And I got very nervous, and I just kind of said to my mom, not gonna happen. But Robbie Furr, who's still in extension today, was a teenager in my 4-H club, and he and other teenagers kind of just took a couple minutes to give me a little pep talk, and I did it, and I was great, and I was fine. That took about, 30 seconds of effort for them. But for me, it's 30 years later, and I'm still thinking about the impact that had. Just a couple of other examples. This is a picture of my father and I working on a car. He made me do all my own car maintenance as a teenager, which wasn't always fun. He was not the kind of guy who did organized community service projects, but he did do a lot of travel, and he always had in his truck a toolbox, and he never hesitated to stop and help a stranded motorist. And it may have taken 15 minutes for him to change a tire, but to the person who was stranded, it made a tremendous difference in their day. And then the final example I'll give is this homeless man. And when I first moved to DC, I passed this guy every day. And he always had something funny to say or something encouraging, like, only 2 more days till the weekend, you can make it. And you know, it brightened my day, and it clearly had an impact on many people. Because when he unexpectedly passed away from a heart attack, multiple papers, including the Washington Post here, had an article about his life and the impact he made. And in those articles, and he even has a Wikipedia page, you can read about how high-level government lobbyists and legislators at one point had to petition the city of Washington to let him leave his junk on the sidewalk because they didn't want him to move away and not be there every morning to greet them and give them, you know, a little more oomph to go and work hard the rest of the day. The next lesson is just to embrace who you are as an individual. You know, I think you've heard this week from a lot of folks who were able to do something because they stayed true to their hearts. And for me, this ridiculous picture on the left is a good reminder of that. When I was in high school, I went to a rather urban high school, and there were a lot of people who did not understand this whole 4-H concept. They didn't understand why I was judging poultry. They didn't understand why I was showing cows. And they called me the poultry queen, and at one point they called me barn door. And rather than getting really upset by that teasing, I just played along. And, you know, dressed up for Halloween one year as the country bumpkin poultry queen, rather than letting it, but I stuck to my path rather than, you know, letting it influence my decisions. And I've also got a picture here of my husband, Tomas, and my son, Felipe. And I think Tomas is another good example of sticking to what you, in your core, believe. When we first met, he was a chemical engineering major at NC State. And I was around when we had to start having conversations with professors and family members about the fact that he didn't want to be a chemical engineer. He wanted to go to law school, and then he wanted to do nonprofit environmental work. And that really raised some eyebrows. People were like, are you sure? Because you could get a great job coming out of school and be set for life. And you're talking about going to grad school, taking on a tremendous amount of debt, and then coming out with a job where you don't make as much money as you might make if you stuck in the kind of chemical engineering path. But he said, yeah, it is. I know it's a little crazy, but that's what I want to do. And he was able to get a scholarship to go to Oxford in the UK and do master's degrees in economics and environmental management, and then he went to Yale Law School. And now he's an attorney for the Environmental Defense Fund, and he literally spends his day trying to save the planet. So it's, in the end, paid off, and we can afford our mortgage, and we're doing just fine. Daycare costs, maybe not, but mortgage we can. The next thing I just wanted to mention is get diverse experiences. I find this so important no matter what you do, particularly when you're trying to help. There have been a lot of service projects around the world that have failed miserably because people didn't take all the different perspectives in mind, particularly some of the work in developing countries to try to do the right thing. Sometimes it backfires if you don't take account local customs and local views. And in my world of policy development, it's critical because if you don't take account of all of the stakeholders, whether they be small farmers or big industry or importers or consumer groups, then you may create a policy that ends up failing. Now, getting diverse experiences can mean a lot of different things. You can travel abroad, which I highly recommend, but you don't have to. You can go on the internet and peruse newspapers and media websites from around the world for free. You can look up your local community calendar and go to a concert or a lecture or play that you wouldn't normally go to. Or you can just meet cool and interesting people that have different backgrounds from yourselves. I'm sure that the bottom right photo there looks like it's from someplace quite exotic. But that's actually the wedding of my friend Chapin that happened right here in Cary, North Carolina. And Chapin and I met as undergrads at State, and I'm so glad that we did. Not only because he introduced me to Indian food and Indian culture, which is like my favorite cuisine now, but also because I learned about his religion and where his parents grew up. And now when I have to call the FDA India office to talk about a food safety issue, I have a little more perspective of where they're sitting and where they're coming from. The next item is find good mentors and be a good mentor. I had many fabulous mentors in my life. To my left in that photo is Pam Uten, who was my Cabarrus County 4-H agent for many years and like a third parent to me. But I also had professors, and I had, all kinds of people throughout 4-H, Secretary of State Elaine Marshall, someone I got to know in my 4-H experience, and she helped give me guidance when I was thinking about making the shift to policy. And even coworkers have been great mentors. In fact, I've never held a job that I just got on my own. There was always a mentor who either alerted me to the opportunity or gave me a recommendation to whoever was looking. So that can be really important in your career. Use that network. And just as important as finding good mentors is being a good mentor. The other two women in this photo are fellow Cabarrus County 4-Hers who were a year or two younger than me. And I helped coach them on how to get to district and state office. And watching them go through the process was a great experience for me as well. And for those of you that don't recognize them, these are the two that are here in the room, Daniel and Cooper. And I've got to say, I am so proud of them because they are already being great mentors to my son. They're already teaching him about cows and lambs, and watching them develop as mentors is really rewarding in itself. And you're never too young, clearly, to have a mentor, because you can be 2.5 and have a mentor. I'm almost done. The next item I want to discuss is somewhat related but somewhat different. And that's not to be afraid to talk to adults and superiors. I think this is one of the best things that 4-H has to offer, because from a very young age, 4-Hers are almost equals to their club leaders and planning activities. And older 4-Hers, time and time again, I've seen them treat younger 4-Hers with great respect in incorporating their views into the planning. 4-H also did me the great favor of helping me get used to talking to important people, just like you all did today in talking to your legislators. These are a couple pictures. On the left is me meeting with former Governor Jim Hunt, and on the right with former Senator Jesse Helms. And this prepared me in many ways. It helped me be less anxious in talking to professors in college, especially if I didn't understand something that they had taught. It helped me talk to scientific experts at the national academies, and it helps me today. And I think this skill is one that I've seen time and time again that not enough adults even develop. And I think that's a real problem in society, and not one that you've already studied this week. I know you've talked about the Holocaust, and I know you've talked about the Civil Rights Movement. And I just think, would the Holocaust have happened if more people had been willing to talk to folks in authority? And would the Civil Rights Movement have happened? Would we still live in a segregated society if young people had not decided to stand up and make something happen? So these are all really critical items, and I just encourage you to have the courage to incorporate this into your life, as I'm sure many of you already have. And my final piece of advice is just to take advantage of everything 4-H has to offer. I gotta say, keeping those record books helped me to become an organized person. Doing those presentations helped helped me to be more confident in public speaking. And working with people has been such an amazing gift that the 4-H program and people like you all have given to me. So I just have to say that you all are already doing something. You're doing something by being here today. You've already done something by being active 4-Hers. And I just urge you to go home, take a nap, and then be ready to get up and continue doing the great work that you all have been doing. Thank you.
Dr. Boon, thank you for taking the time from your busy schedule to be with us today. On behalf of over 232,000 4-Hers in North Carolina, we are honored you have shared your thoughts with us today. Thank you for all you've done to support North Carolina 4-H. As a small token of our appreciation, please accept this gift and hope that it will find a special place in your home.